Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. It's been a bad week for Humza Yousaf. He sees his plans for his pretendy referendum reversed. He wanted the most seats. He had to settle with the majority of seats. Then 2 days later, he realises what we knew all along, that it was all utterly pointless. Nobody's going to listen. He then does the jaw-dropping announcement of a council tax freeze after saying that there's going to be increases of up to 22.5%. The trouble is he hadn't told his cabinet, the government, the civil service, the Greens. He hadn't told the councils, breaking the Verity House agreement. And of course, worst of all, he hadn't told his wife. More on that story in a video later today. But now, of course, there is the third fail in a week. He's going to be announcing that there will be a U-turn, a freeze on increasing the income tax. Despite saying that originally he wanted to increase it for the middle earners. That, of course, would have driven some of them to go and put their assets and their companies south of the border, and thus reducing the tax take. What else do you expect from someone who's economically illiterate? And indeed, I'm not entirely sure that that's the only thing he's illiterate about. Anyway, we'll take a look at this income tax U-turn because it is going to annoy the Greens again. But will they walk this time? Probably not. But anyway, here goes. So Humza Yousaf set for another embarrassing U-turn on income tax in a desperate attempt to win SNP voters back. Because, of course, they were all looking at the massive swing to Labour from Rutherglen and Hamilton West, and they thought, is there something we can do? Well, I'm going to tell you now, the U-turn on income tax isn't going to save you. Those people who will be looking at a rise, the middle earners will be in a rise, aren't really your sort of strong voter base. Now, you may please them, but will it necessarily drive enough back from where they voted before into your arms? And I suspect not. So while it's sort of nice for them to have this tax cut, it won't actually achieve what you need to do. If you truly want to get voters back on side, you may want to consider, I don't know, having an NHS that works, having an education system that isn't complete and utter rubbish, that sort of thing. The things people actually want, rather than just constantly appealing to minority groups. Certainly dropping the gender reform bill would be very helpful. Again, more on that later in another video. But anyway, we'll have a look at this now. The First Minister is also now reportedly not afraid to upset the Scottish Greens, as they seem desperate to stay in government because it helps their reputation. And so now, finally, he's realised, again, what we've all known from day one, is that you can actually tell the Greens, look, if you don't like it, you can walk away, but knowing that they won't walk away. No one ever willingly gives up power. And these people are so desperate to cling on to their ministerial positions that they will not. Harvey and Slater will hang on to the grim death, even if everything the SNP do is against their policy. But they'll just cling on with their grasping, greedy fingers, because they've got that power and they want to keep it. So Humza Yousaf is set for another embarrassing U-turn as he may scrap his plans to hike up income tax for middle earners, who are already paying the most income tax anywhere in Britain. This would be a massive change in strategy for the First Minister, who built his entire leadership campaign on pushing forward with a progressive tax system, except of course in Glasgow, where it's regressive and taxes the poor, not the wealthy, with their ULEZ charge. It will also annoy the Scottish Greens, as one of their key policies is to tax those who earn more at a higher rate to pay for public services. But government insiders claim that Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater are so desperate to stay in the coalition that they will not resign over these issues. They won't resign at all. If the SNP tomorrow said, no, actually, we're going to change our view, we're going to open up the oil fields, we're going to do this, we're going to do it, and did everything that was against the Greens' manifestos, the Greens would still stay in power. They're desperate for that power, aren't they? After a by-election thrashing by Labour, the SNP is looking at ditching unpopular plans in order to draw back in voters who stayed away on polling day. Oh, Humza, dear heart, it wasn't voters staying away on polling day that you need to be worried about. It's the voters who said, I've had enough of this SNP crap and moved directly to Labour. It's the swing, not the attendance that's your problem. If you have a bigger attendance because, say, it's a general election and not a by-election, the swing is still going to be there. It's just one of these things. Your message is not... It's not that your message isn't getting across. It's that people are seeing your message and they just don't like it. They don't like what they're hearing. And they certainly don't like what you're doing. Anyway, the Times reports that Mr Yousaf is pivoting towards a more populist offering to voters. As evidenced by the council tax freeze he announced at the SNP conference out of the blue. And that was another dramatic U-turn on policy. One senior party figure told the paper that income tax rises were not going to happen. Well, he's got to pay these all these promises. He's promising this, he's promising that. 300 million to the NHS. He's a billion in the hole already. And he's promised another 300 billion for that. You've got the council tax freeze, which is going to be, and we talked this, at least $500 million. Where's he getting the money? Doesn't grow on the magic money tree, you know. Anyway, it's understood that a nationalist crisis meeting was held after the party's crushing defeat in Rutherglen, and with Stephen Flynn, John Swinney, former MSP Bruce Crawford and Stuart Hosey all in attendance, as well as various cabinet ministers and advisors. But there was no Nicola Sturgeon on the invite list. Humza wants to keep her away as much as possible. I think he literally fears her coming back. I think he knows that his time is coming up, and that if Nicola Sturgeon is cleared by the police, she could walk straight back in as leader, and he knows that, and he'd be out. And he's already proven what a moron he is. She probably wouldn't have him back in the cabinet. Anyway, the SNP have already ensured that Scotland is the highest tax part of the UK, which I've mentioned, with 5 different income tax bands, and people earning about 28,000 paying more to the public purse than their English counterparts. Mr Yousaf threatened even more hikes when attending the Scottish Trades Union Congress, but this has been quietly dropped despite his very public backing of it, because he knows it's unpopular. And he also, maybe somebody has explained to him that as you increase taxes, your tax take reduces. Laffer curve. It's a very, very well-known thing. But of course, that requires someone who knows what they're doing, knows whereof they speak. Someone with a bit of economic understanding. And this, after all, is the SNP. And we've seen how bad they are with economics. It seems the First Minister is no longer in thrall to the Scottish Greens in government, who were angered by the council tax freeze. One of the reasons is it suits the Greens' agenda, because they're all Marxist, of course. So it suits the Greens' agenda that everyone is in poverty and is miserable. It means that it's easier for them to control them. When you have someone who's fairly wealthy or relatively wealthy and happy, they're not going to be listening to the likes of Patrick the Tit Harvey or Jeffrey, and so it suits them to have people sort of poor, miserable, and compliant. It's the only way they can control them. Anyway, it sees national strategists, I forgot where I was there, national strategists believe that come what may, they won't leave the government. And this is because Mr Harvey and Miss Slater are desperate to stay inside the tent. It gives them credibility they never ever had, and they believe it has increased their kudos with their own folk and the electorate. Well, it may have increased their kudos with their own folk, but what it has done is highlighted to the electorate how awful the Greens are. It's a double-edged weapon, this, isn't it? Opposition critics highlighted this change of strategy by Mr Yousaf as a sign that he was clueless when in power. Well, let's face it, that's not news, is it? We all know that. Scottish Tory business spokesman Murdo Fraser said, "Is this Humza adopting the Kate Forbes agenda? Next, ditch the GRR bill and conversion therapy ban." Fellow Tory MSP Stephen Kerr said, as the Conservatives said, you levy a higher tax on things you want to dissuade people from doing. If that's earning more money, people will go elsewhere. Yet Scotland is still the highest tax part of the UK. And under Humza Yousaf, things would only get worse. And it's never going to ease. This is the trouble when you have morons in authority, morons with power. Give a monkey control of the universe and he'll fill it with bananas. When you let idiots run economic policy, it's no surprise the economy crashes. When you give a moron power over the NHS, It's no surprise the NHS crashes. And when you put an absolute buffoon in charge of a political party that the day one he had a huge majority and he's now wiped out. Oh dear. Couldn't make it happen, could you? Anyway, I'm going to round up and come up. I do think that politicians need to have an IQ test. Most of them would fail, let's be honest. Most of them just wouldn't pass any kind of IQ test. They are all, not all, that's unfair to say all, but a lot of them are incredibly dim. And we have in Humza Yousaf a man whose IQ is literally room temperature. He doesn't understand anything. He makes announcements. We all sit here as the viewers, and we're looking in on these things, and we hear the words that come out of his mouth, and we straight away, immediately go, right, well, that's wrong, that won't work. He doesn't, or if he does, it means it's deliberate, and he's being deliberately dangerous, deliberately destructive, or he's actually naturally that stupid. Now, with him, I firmly believe he's just naturally that stupid. And there's no getting away from it, because he's just a moron, isn't he? But 3 reverse ferrets in a week, all on major policies that he's announced. Oh, it's not going well for Humza Yousaf, is it? Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, it's not long now, and you can vote every bugger out. Bye.